Hello, welcome in this short training module covering OTRS. OTRS is the ticketing system for all Interact propositions, including Interact Office Wireless, Interact Industry, and PoE. And this ticketing system is required to get your project or user account registered in the system. So before we dive into detail, a short summary of how the system has been set up. Interact works with a certain hierarchy, starting on top level with the project or customer. A customer can have one or multiple sites, and a site can have one or multiple buildings. And obviously, a building can have one or multiple floors. This is how the system has been designed and implemented. And it is important to realize that you, as a system engineer, will not be able to create all these levels yourself. You could, for instance, create additional floors. You could create an additional building. But when you need to create an additional site or an additional project customer, you will have to use OTRS. And our operational team is the receiving end, and they will implement that for you. OTRS is the system to inform operations about a request. They will review the request and implement if all prerequisites have been met. So let's take a real life example, Signify. The project or customer will be called Signify. High-tech campus will become the site, and then we have HC48 as building, and then we have floor, ground floor or first floor as floors in the building. Depending on your role and scope, you will be able to see all buildings within the same site, or even all sites within the same customer. That depends whether you're reporting in a certain region or when you have been assigned to a certain project. So also good to realize that each user might have a different view. So when we look at the project lifecycle, no surprises here. So we start with an opportunity in the market, and the market will raise a so-called DSR, deal support request. This is the moment where the system center comes in scope, and prior execution there will be some negotiation with non-binding and binding proposals. But once the contract is in place and we move on with the execution, we will have to make use of OTRS to get our project registered in the system, as well the user accounts. So we will need to raise dedicated tickets to request for a new customer, site and building. And we will have to request user accounts for both internal as well external. Internal system centers, making use of system engineers, technical designers, installers, and they all need their dedicated account. External is the end user. An end user can be a plain user with read-only access, or a facility manager, which has also the ability to control the lights. After execution, we need to hand over the project to customer satisfaction. We also have to make sure that customer satisfaction has an account associated with the building we want to hand over. In order to request for a new user account, we would need to have an email address, and that email address should be a company or corporate email address, so it can be associated with the customer. We need to define the user role, and we have several user roles available in the Interact system, and the user role defines which applications can be used. I propose to have a look to the cross table mentioned in our technical training, which clearly explains which applications can be accessed by which role. So that should give you a clear indication which role should be requested. And of course we need to define the scope of this user, and the scope is limited to a building. In case you want to have the same user account linked to several buildings, you can request this via dedicated or additional tickets. One exception, and that is the API and space management application. They require a functional account which is assigned on customer level. So OTRS has been prepared with the following process tickets. Starting with the OTRS account, and do not confuse this with the Interact account. This is two different systems. The OTRS account is required to raise new OTRS tickets. And yeah, this can be a chicken egg problem. In order to raise OTRS tickets, you need to have an OTRS account. So how do you request for an OTRS account? I would suggest to ask in your own team to find somebody who is already accessing OTRS, so he or she can do that for you. If you're not able to find somebody in your team, you can always reach out to a system expert and they will be able to support you. Once you have access to OTRS, you can request for new Interact accounts, you can create a request for a new customer, site, building, and you can also request to terminate those. You can imagine if a project has been suspended, you want to remove these from the system, you can also do that via tickets. So let's have a look at the system, shall we? In order to do so, we have to use the following URL, and it can be used from anywhere. We will have to enter our credentials. And if you do not have credentials, you need to find somebody who has already access to OTRS, and then use the new OTRS user process ticket. Log in. And this gives you a dashboard which can be used to track the status of all your tickets. Really useful when you have to manage a lot of tickets, a lot of projects, whatever. In order to raise a new ticket, you have to go to the top, and next to dashboard there is a menu called tickets, and you have the new process ticket link here. Here we can select the process ticket we want to use, and as you can see we have a lot of tickets available. So you can recognize the new customer project, new site, new building, and new user tickets. Depending whether you are working with other propositions, for instance in public, the list might be longer. Be aware you should use the Interact Office process tickets and not the other ones. So let's say we want to prepare a new building. First we have to start with the new customer ticket. As you know, we have a hierarchy in place, customer, site, building, so we also have to request in the same order. Customer name can be, for instance, Signify, and we can press submit. This will create a new ticket. Operations will receive this ticket and they will create the new customer in Interact. This process can take up to 24 hours, so plan for this when you're working on a project. Once you got the confirmation that the customer has been made, you can proceed with the next ticket, which is the new site. And here you have to select the customer, because as you know, the site belongs to a customer, and you can enter a new site name, for instance, High Tech Campus. Market, if this is visible, make sure you select the market you are reporting in. So in this case, CL Europe. Probably you are not seeing this field at all, so you can skip it in that case. Same here, press submit, wait 24 hours max, and then the site will be created for you automatically. Then you're ready to raise for the new building. This one is a little bit more complicated. So similar approach, we need to select the customer, we need to select the site, and then we can enter a building name, for instance Singapore Head Office. Market, again, you are reporting in Europe, so select the European market here. And here we have a new field called features, and here you can select the features that should be enabled for this particular installation. We have the API, so when we are dealing with an integrator or a third-party app developer, make sure to enable the API, and the same for the kiosk and space management applications. And of course, this needs to be supported with a contract, so do not choose them by default. The customer should pay for this. Once everything has been set, press submit and wait for 24 hours max. Once you have the confirmation that the building has been created, you can proceed with the user accounts, and for this go back to new process ticket and select new user. The user should be linked to a project, again signify, a site, Singapore, and the building. And then for this particular user we have to enter an email, fellows@signify.com. Make sure you are using a company or corporate email address, so Gmail or Hotmail addresses should not be allowed. First name, last name, and the city. And here we can select a user role. And again, please refer to the cross table in one of our technical trainings to understand the applications you can access with each user role. In short, the user is used for the end user, giving access to the dashboard. Intaker is more or less related to the technical designer, preparing all the floor plans. The installer is a person that installs and commissions the system, so this is also giving access to light map. A facility manager is identical to the user, but including the light control app, so this user can also switch on and off the lights via the dashboard. An expert will have access to almost all applications, and the API user and the API user is a functional account. There are no applications associated to this role, but we need to have this functional account in place in order to make use of the API. In this example, I'm an expert. I would like to prepare the floor plans, and I also would like to commission the system myself. So I have to select expert and press submit. And again, this takes 24 hours. You can request for additional accounts in parallel, so you do not have to wait for this ticket to be resolved to proceed with the second user account. You can request easily 10 accounts at the same time. That's no problem. These are the most important tickets. You can also use the delete user ticket if the user is no longer associated with this project, or maybe the user has left the company. Enter the email address and reason why you would like to have this account removed. Press submit. It will be verified by operations, and if everything is okay, it will be deleted from the system. Service request and incident are not in scope for the system center. They are used internally by the operational teams. The new OTRS user ticket is used to create a new OTRS account. The following fields have to be entered, starting with the user role. We can select between second level agent and market agent. Make sure you select market agent. This is the user role defined for system centers. Market depends in which region you're reporting. In my case, that will be Serial Europe. Name and surname. And my email address. And make sure you make use of your corporate address. So no Gmail, no Hotmail. Only at Signify addresses are accepted for the new OTRS user project. Press submit and this will submit the ticket. The new user will receive a confirmation together with a user manual. So this brings us to the end of the training module, where we introduced you into OTRS and process tickets, how easy it is to request for a new customer, site, building or user account. If you still have a question or issue, do not hesitate to reach out to a system expert via support.connectedlighting@signify.com. One closing note: once you have all these tickets processed and implemented, make sure you complete all the required fields in the Interact applications. The building, for instance, will be prepared for you, but you will have to complete the building, for instance, with the installed power and floor plans. That is something that needs to be done in the Interact application, which is also explained in our technical training modules. Thank you.